Hello and welcome back to a new Rage Gaming video. My name is Hollow and today we're checking out Critica Reboot, the overhauled and updated version of Critica Online. This is an instanced mission-based MMORPG with ridiculously fast combat, featuring big combo chains and flashy special abilities. That part of the name Reboot comes from the overhaul of the original game. It's got new classes, new content updates, and of course the much smoother leveling and overall progression of the game now. It's a true overhaul of the original systems to be much more enjoyable in the current days. As a free-to-play MMO available on Steam, with good reviews considering its long life since the original release all the way back in 2013, this was an MMO I expected to check out sometime, but luckily for us, we were approached to check out the game in prep for their upcoming update next month on October 21st. So, though this is a sponsored video, it felt like a good fit for the channel since we've been covering different MMOs. With that, I just want to say respect to the devs for asking us to simply check out the game and mention what's coming next month, then make whatever video we'd like to. But if you do like the look of the game, be sure to click our link in the description to check out the game so they know we sent you. With all of that said, here is my first impressions of Critica Reboot in 2020. To begin with, we obviously need to make a character. Currently, Critica Reboot has 8 classes with between 1 and 3 subclasses on each. This will total at 17 subclasses to choose between, which of course massively changes how each and every class plays, both in their combat style and their visuals. For example, with the Blader class, I can choose between the Flame Striker and the Blade Dancer, and I'm going to be trying out the Flame Striker since this is the most recent subclass, using a mix of sword and a giant gauntlet and also, yeah, fire. First though, I will start as the Blader and then I'll choose my subclass once I hit level 15. The character creator for Critica is bare bones to say the least. It's straightforward with a few different hair options, faces, color options on a lot of things, but that's about as far as it goes. It does the job, but this is pretty minimal. Customization of characters seems to come with in-game unlocks and also the costumes. For the story of the game, it hits you with cinematics and lore for what's going on with the world and its factions as you progress through the game. It does take a pretty big backseat to the combat and the actual gameplay though, but the gist is that using crazy advanced technology, some dude named Alkai is using the power of a source called Lapisium to create a new age under him, taking control of the region by force and his advanced tech. Naturally, we're not happy about that and we're part of the fight against him to prevent this. It's to the point and straightforward, but nothing mind-blowing about this setup, I'd say. But now let's get into the meat and bones of the game. We kick off the game with a short instance tutorial to teach you the basics of combat. We've got fast movement, basic attacks, a very large jump, and a shift dash to avoid damage and enemy attacks. And then the 4 skills that you work with. And as we progress, we'll unlock more, we'll power those original abilities up, and then we'll reach our subclass. Combos are massive in Critica, chaining different attacks together to juggle enemies, do massive damage, do AoE, and never giving them a chance to fight back. You'll be suggested just a couple combos to try for different uses, and let me tell you how insane this combat is, how fast it is. I lose control of my character if I just start spamming abilities, so I actually have to think what I'm using and when. It took a bit to get into, but it felt really good by the time that I hit my subclass. Especially against bosses, it feels good to land big combos back to back, stunning or even literally juggling big enemies even if they're a big boss in the air. As soon as I started unlocking more abilities like ranged and CC or dragging enemies into a certain spot, I could see where different combos could come in, and I ended up experimenting a lot as I went. Because the game uses auto-tagging on your basic attacks and abilities, you're focused more on the combos and dodging enemy attacks, which honestly, though I normally wouldn't like that, I find it a bit of a relief here because I had a lot to pay attention to just maximize my abilities and combos and not get hit at the same time. Plus, the abilities themselves are generally all on really short cooldowns except for your ultimates, and the classes I've played do use a mana bar, but everything I've had the entire time has never really been limited by mana. I'm always good to go. The TLDR on the combat though is that this is really super fast paced with big combos and clearly a high skill cap even in the PvE settings. On the max level character where I was playing on harder difficulties, hitting bigger combos and moving quickly out of enemy attacks, well, it was all very important if I wanted to stand a chance. I found the hit weight solid and the animations are fun, if a little dated, with their VFX. For the leveling, we progress through different instance missions that take us to different regions and locations, moving from hub to different area to different area. Starting with straightforward missions where you just fight different enemies in packs and maybe see a mini boss here or there, and then finally hit the final boss at the end of the mission. To begin with, these are super easy and straightforward, but as we get further, enemies get more complex and they start using different abilities too. While doing these main missions, we'll be picking up up side quests and doing different things while inside the stages. Like at the very beginning, I was finding these pigs in a pen and freeing them, or say going to a different area to go kill certain enemies to get certain drops. But the side quests take place where we're often meant to go for main stuff anyway, and you can double them up nicely instead of blindly clearing stages and repeating them over and over, so leveling can go much faster because you're knocking out all those quests. At the end of a mission, we will get a ranking based on how we did in the stage overall, and mid-combat there's also combat scores to track how big of a hit chain we're on and rate what combos we're pulling off. So that's all very nice to keep track of personal progression, but obviously to start out with, just beating the mission is the main goal. Missions come right now in 4 difficulties: normal, advanced, master, and hell, and obviously the increased difficulty rewards better rewards, but is more difficult because the enemies are doing more damage and have a lot more health. I found that the environments between missions quickly changed with those more interesting basic enemies and the different areas that I'm playing in. On hell mode, the boss fights became a lot more exciting because, yeah, they have more abilities, they do more damage. And when I swapped to the account they provided with a max level character, playing on harder difficulties in new content was really hard. Meanwhile, around the point of level 13 on my English server character, playing on hell modes, I found the bosses to be a bit more involved and I needed to maintain combos to maintain CC, but they were very manageable. Finally though, at level 15 I unlocked my Flame Striker subclass, which changed up how the character felt to play entirely, which is a good sign for the other classes and how much the subclasses actually do change a character. I started using a new weapon, this big fire gauntlet combined with the sword and the new fire attacks. We're doing a lot of slamming and smashing now. The AoE feels really good on this class. I drag enemies into one spot, unleash the slams and the explosions, and I can do a sort of triple punch, absolutely brutalizing my opponents. When I made the change to this subclass, a couple base abilities did come across, but I found myself using the new ones most of the time at this point, but I did get good use out of my old ranged attack and the old charge. And then obviously I got a chance to play with the Blade Dancer on the max level character. For PvP, there is seemingly a PvP scene for this game, and I can only imagine how ridiculous that might be. It seems you unlock the arena at level 70, and there's also Guild Wars ongoing too, but I obviously didn't get a chance to play this on the high level character, but it is an area of the game I would like to know more about, like how does that work considering the speed of the combat. Speaking of higher levels though, when I did swap to the account provided by the devs, I could play a level 20 Flame Striker, which was only a little ahead of my main on the English Steam servers anyway, and then the level 70, aka max level currently, the Blade Dancer. Jumping on that Blade Dancer, I saw that I had my basic abilities unlocked, but tons of XP to spend to unlock and improve everything, which I certainly did. The character itself looks nuts, literally just like the Blade Dancer who shows up in the story to showcase, hey, what you might look like one day at max level, which is funny because here I am. The Blade Dancer felt totally different to the default Blader and of course the other subclass. Only a couple of those abilities do come across, but the playstyle completely changes. I jumped into a practice area to test. The Blade Dancer class is able to hold her sword in its sheath temporarily and then unleash new anime-esque unsheath attacks. I can do these mid-air or in the middle of a combo, just doing insane sudden burst damage as long as I can channel it for just a brief moment. All the red abilities you see on my bars are ones used while channeling the sheath attacks, while the rest can just be thrown out at will, using lots of different void magic for AoE or insanely fast strikes for both single target and small area AoE if you do position correctly. And this was my first time using an ultimate ability too, which plays out short cinematics. In this case, the Blade Dancer does one single unsheath strike for huge damage. It's pretty cool, and I imagine all classes do have this, but mid-combat, I can't imagine this is invasive to watch that every time, so I wonder if you can turn that off. I was told to try out some specific stages at Endgame, but I can't say that was easy to follow, considering how I was playing everything in Korean. Fortunately, I was able to work out if I just head to portals in the different hubs, and check out the levels, choose difficulties, and just try some levels. There's a funny experience though, doing like even just level 68 content as a level 70. I'm max level, I'm geared insanely, so I was killing like everything in one hit. But I will say the different environments I played in are way more interesting at max level compared to when I was just starting. This boss battle takes me back in time and into different dimensions before actually fighting the boss itself, for example. Or the tomb here with the ghosts and the ancient golems defending it, with seemingly a necromancer waiting at the end. While playing, I found a really good combo where I do this black hole ability to draw enemies into one spot, and then using any insane strike combo or single slash dash for a burst to finish anyone alive, which to be honest, there wasn't anything alive usually because I clearly overgeared this content. However, this did work a lot better when I finally found the new section, which is the upcoming expansion in October. This is already out on career servers, as you can see, so I could actually start working towards the new max level of 75 and do some of that new content. The boss fight in the first level was immediately way more interesting mechanically, with more telegraphed attacks, range shots, and charges to avoid, while dealing as much damage as possible myself. When I put it on a harder mode, this fight became impossible. I just could not keep up, which is kind of cool to see. Visually, this is certainly an anime style game that's a little dated in 2020, but not in a too damaging way. The ability animations are still solid and hold up, and the vibe of the characters does come across well. Plus, the costumes for the characters come in a ridiculous variety as I finally found the shop and had a look at them. Tons of MMO players enjoy creating characters and then unlocking outfits or creating, say, an ideal transmog, so I'm not surprised to see this stuff in the shop. I was actually able to unlock some cosmetics in game by just playing, but you have to wonder how far this goes and how much you have to pay for this stuff. Anyway, there are two updates coming this month and next month that I really should mention. The balance update comes on the 30th of September, which is going to affect the skill balance for every class with their attempt to balance the strengths between all classes so far. That should be good for the current game and probably the PvP scene, I would assume. While the next month, there's a full expansion coming with that large update I was testing out on the career servers. This comes on October the 21st, so now is probably a good time to jump in, try the game, and maybe even hit level 70 to be prepared for that new update. With that update though, the level cap goes from 70 to 75, and with that we'll see the new level 75 village and stage called the Manafall Village, which is what I began playing around in. They've also added 10 total new level 75 villages and stages, and the new Legend, Myth, and Heaven grade equipment too. It's good to see they're still updating the game and adding new stuff, and it was cool to get a brief look at it myself. I think I've got a good opinion of Critica, but I do have a couple of things to mention, a couple of downsides that I experienced. Firstly, the gender lock classes, which is unfortunate. It doesn't bother me too much, but I definitely know people won't like that. And mainly for me, it was some of the bad English translations in the text or cinematics. Quests or interactions might just be a little broken English at times, and I'd love to see that updated or overhauled just for the English-speaking players. In conclusion though, I found Critica Reboot to be a very fun action combat game that just so happened to be an MMORPG that I could totally play completely alone, but I imagine it's easy to group up with people and jump in some stages. Honestly, I've always had a fond place in my heart for instance-based games where I can go solo or group with friends to do some intense PvE against a big boss or tons of enemies, working my way through different environments, playing the much harder difficulties. The first game I played of this nature was actually Vindictus, and I think that game is still going strong to this day, so clearly people enjoy that genre. I'd say the worst outcome for a new player trying Critica is that they probably get a bit of fun out the crazy combat style for free for a few hours, and then maybe don't get into the game. Meanwhile, the best case scenario is that you'll find hundreds of hours of fun here, progressing your character at endgame, whether you lean more into PvE or PvP. Because it's an instance-based game though, you can jump in and out freely without being too time committed to, say, a long dungeon. I've enjoyed my time with Critica. We might just have to check out the expansion stuff when that's released next month on the English patch, so I know what the hell's going on. What do you think about Critica Reboot? Have you played this one before? Perhaps someone in the comments could tell me about their experience with what endgame's actually like. For now though, I just want to thank you guys for supporting our sponsored content we do on the channel sometimes. We try not to do it too often and only what fits with the channel, but they do really help us out. Don't forget to use our link in the description when you check out the game yourself. Either way, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and I'll see you next time.